Servus, Matthias here, and Happy New Year to everyone. Trent Banks of the Trail Film Festival is joining our first episode of the new year. The winter edition 2022 of the Virtual Trail Film Festival is coming right up, and you should get your ticket. The lineup of films looks absolutely stellar. So, before we dive into the interview with Trent, pause the show, jump to trailfilmfest.com and get your tickets to the upcoming winter edition of the Virtual Trail Running Film Festival. All right, you back? Got your ticket? Good. Here's Trent. I'm gonna get this show on the road. This is single track episode 215, I believe it is. I lost count. No, I'm tracking this actually very closely for my own ego, my own sake. This is the first show of 2022, which is a mouthful to say 2022. It feels like 2020 times two, like a double take. Anyway, enough of that. I have an incredible guest who I have never really met in person, and so I'm super excited. Trent Banks is here with me, and he brings a very interesting and great project and is ready to announce all of this here on the show. Trent, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Matthias. It's great to be here. And I am here as a representative of the Trail Running Film Festival. And excited to be here talking about that today. Namely, our winter show, winter edition for 2022 is coming up pretty quickly here. It'll be January 15th. That's a Saturday. It'll go live at 5:30 in the evening Pacific time. So here to talk about the Film Fest with you a little bit today. I'm looking forward to it.
I love that you already put all of the important anchor dates. We have links in the show notes to the Film Festival's website, to a place where you can buy tickets and get more information about the upcoming show. We've talked about the Film Festival before, and we love the way it has evolved. And before we dive into this, I want to talk to you about you, Trent. Tell me and your listeners a little bit where you sit, what you do, and what brings you to the film festival.
Where I sit, what I do. Well, really, I think we're here more because of where I run, which is trails. I'm sitting in Ohio right now at my mother-in-law's house, celebrating the holidays, but I am Bellingham-based, Bellingham, Washington, and alongside of the work I do for the Film Festival, which is primarily has been marketing, that role has been growing over the last year. I am also the marketing director and a senior trail guide for Aspire Adventure Running, and father of two lovely children, husband of one lovely woman. Yeah, that's maybe the nutshell.
This is amazing, and I don't know. I should point out to my listeners that we already have another incredible voice and trail runner from the Bellingham area. It just speaks to the Bellingham trail running community, how rich and creative and ever present it is. This is amazing.
Man, I mean, Bellingham is really such an incredible place to run. From my backyard, I can run up onto Galbraith Mountain, and it just kind of never ends. So it's an amazing place to be a trail runner. It's an amazing and really great community to be a part of, just here in Western Washington in general. I know you're in Olympia.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I'm down in Olympia.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of never ends.
No, it's true. It does never end. We have a city park here that nobody would really consider a true destination. I mean, it's a city park. It's not even like a mountain in the city. But when you're running there, and I can get to it within like a mile and a half from my house, the trees are so tall and the trails are so windy. It truly feels, when you look from the right angle, that you're truly somewhere wild, and that just gives you so much on a regular trailing run, right?
Yeah, Yeah, we're a bit spoiled.
Well, it's good to be spoiled and it's good to take it. So let's talk a little bit about trail running. You do this semi-professional for Aspire, and by semi I mean you don't just run for Aspire, do other things. So that's the other semi part. But when you go out running for yourself, what's your sweet spot? What do you what place where do you find yourself home?
Oh man. Um, well, I mean, there's training runs kind of out the door around Bellingham. I spend a good amount of time in the Chuckanuts and on Galbraith and other kind of low country trails, and that's all great. Kind of that's the practice of running, right? But I think as far as where I really find my flow, it's sort of just a creative and adventurous approach to traveling in the mountains is what excites me about trail running. Um, so, for instance, just taking a look at a map, maybe a big section of the Olympic Peninsula, and saying, well, like let's connect these things. Like let's work off of the knowledge we already have and explore some terrain that we don't know yet and have a good day out there.
Yeah.
I think that's really what I'm after.
I think that's sort of this interesting sweet spot for trail runners, and I've repeated this on the show countless times, that the hikers, they have sort of a limit on how far they can go without having to go overnight. And the climbers, they will test their limits on something that gets harder and harder in terms of terrain and difficulty and sort of risk probability. But we as trail runners, we sort of have these abilities to take reasonably easy terrain but connect it all. And it opens up completely new routes and loops that sort of no one has really done before, which is a super exciting place to be in.
Yeah, when I got into trail running in earnest, which was, probably back in 2015, a lot of it was just looking at some of these big routes around Washington that were, backpacking routes. Stuff like Spider Gap in the Central Cascades, and then Apiqua Valley and that big loop, the Spider on Steroids loop, and wanting to be able to get back there, but not really. 5 days is a long time. That's a whole vacation.
Yeah.
That's the whole vacation. And so really a big draw for me was like being able to get and do the Spider on Steroids loop as a fast pack, and like take what is for me just the right amount of time and spend a couple days running in there and be able to cover that terrain and experience these beautiful places. So super grateful for friends and bodies and gear and all the things that get us there.
Yeah.
So amazing.
No, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, some people might laugh at us or question us as trail runners, thinking we're too fast. We can't take in the moment, or we run at night and so we don't actually get to see the vista. But you experience something else when you immerse yourself for so many hours in a continuous motion and then be able to experience this in a shorter period of time. And you somewhat get to do a little bit more of it because you don't need vacation all the time.
Yeah, I think that's true. Certainly that like element of exploration and being able to see a lot of different places and sort of satisfy your curiosity, I think trail running really allows you to get into that.
Yeah. And you were just mentioning gear. I just talked to a friend of mine in Germany who is a big Black Diamond headlamp fan, and I'm using Petzl lamps, and he was laughing at me or questioning me and saying, "Why aren't you using Black Diamond? That's his lamp of choice." And I was explaining to him that the reason why I use the particular lamp is because I can very easily replace the batteries and keep going. Both the rechargeable batteries or AAAs, I can put them into my Petzl headlamp versus the Black Diamond that runs out of battery, and then you have to recharge the entire lamp, then the lamp's useless essentially, right? And he is not a runner, and so he never even thought of the need for that kind of gear. And he was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. That was just one of those data feature points that he never really considered in a gear. We as trail runners, we need gear that can take us all night long and is reliable all night long, right? I mean, it,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's as the like market and the running industry sort of be, becomes more familiar with the needs. It's really the needs of trail running. It's really kind of satisfying to watch them get certain things like the Petzl headlamps like dialed, where it's like, oh, now I need to carry less because they figured it out.
exactly, right? And it's sort of it's fascinating and interesting being part of this sport and this growing sport, and sort of seeing that gear companies are starting to give this attention the way climbers have gotten this attention since the 70s and 80s, and gear got more and more dialed just for them so they would be able to do their things. And if trail runners continue and get even more of a kind of focus, then even more of these cool fast routes are going to be possible, which is fascinating, because two, it will also take us off the main loops, right? I mean, if the main hiking community is sort of groaning under the weight of the popularity of the outdoors. Well, if we can go to places that are not as popular, then we're moving ourselves away from that.
Yeah, yeah. There really are so many elements and nuances to our sport that make it a fantastic way to get out.
Yeah,
You
fantastic. So
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your work at Aspire. We've talked at Aspire, and we'll link to some episodes to Abram in the show notes. You guys are doing something really unique and incredible, in a sense that you take small groups of people out and give them these experiences that sort of in between a race and a self-guided adventure. You have a much smaller group, and you don't have aid stations or flags. People need to know the route, but you're running sort of with them, in a sense that you're running on the same trail, so they can't really get lost. They're taken care of, in a sense that you're providing food, but it's still sort of their own experience. It's a very unique concept, and I love this.
You know, I love it too, man. Uh, it's from the work side of it, from being a senior guide. It is so satisfying. Yeah, really uh, Aspire provides hosts supported adventure runs and the really most exceptional terrain on the American West Coast, and to be able to go and to work in places like Yosemite, work in places uh, like Mount Rainier National Park, and on the California Lost Coast, and in the North Cascades, and to spend time really getting to know those places intimately and return to them, again and again with different groups of people, and to be able to kind of share that knowledge in a way that can deepen our clients' experience as they run through this terrain, um, is just like such an honor and such an incredible thing to be able to do with my time. And for clients, I think it's a pretty exceptional experience. We are essentially, I think that's kind of a cool way to put it, to say that we are somewhere between a race and like a self curated adventure, because we have taken care of the routing. We have really thought through every piece, both logistical and from a kind of touring perspective, like every element to kind of create the most enjoyable and relaxed way for a client to like go and run 93 miles around Mount Rainier on the Wonderland Trail. So then the end result of that for the client is this like, kind of relaxed sort of runcation. And because we've kind of got the work dialed and we know how we operate and the client is enjoying that, we all get to kind of share in this this vibe, which is a group of runners, trail runners, together in the mountains, doing something, pushing themselves. A lot of times our runners are kind of pushing into a new, sort of a new level of operation in the mountains, like maybe the Wonderland is a stretch for them, or maybe 100 miles through the Yosemite backcountry over 4 days is like a big number for them over that amount of days. And so oftentimes our runners are kind of seeing like, man, I can do this. Like, and in that they're coming away from these trips empowered, and we get to sort of, this providing that support while that kind of unfolds for runners on a personal level is like absolutely an honor.
Yeah. No, it sounds fantastic. You're able to operate in national parks and wilderness areas because you have small groups, and you're able to give people these experiences too. Otherwise, I mean, I've planned plenty of my own adventures, and it takes an insane amount of time, which can be very enjoyable if you are hooked up that way. If you enjoy poring over maps and sort of running to REI 15 times to make sure you have all the food and all the gear and stuff. But not everybody has that level of time or interest. And so to be able to kind of sign up and have this sort of pre-catered is not a compromise. I think, as you're saying, it opens people up to experiences that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I actually got involved with Aspire first as a client running the Wonderland Trail, and after doing so, reached out to Abram, was like, yeah, I need to get involved here.
Yeah, amazing.
But I would say that like the freedom of when you come off of the trail, not having to think of all of the little pieces that make the experience, it can be rough, right? Like you come off of a big day on trail, and you maybe you felt great, and maybe you feel great, and maybe you still feel strong, but maybe you're kind of worked. Like maybe it was a super hot day, and you like are a little bit bonked, and to have support there that's a professional support is like the plainest way to put it, that is absolutely dialed on how to make sure that like you come down into a place of restoration and strength is just so rad. And I think you put it well. It's not like it's a cop out. I think there's totally so much that is like edifying and really satisfying to building your own route and setting up your own support. But this is another way to experience it that can be equally what's my word?
Fulfilling.
This is another experience that can really
fulfilling.
Yeah, equally fulfilling is a great way to put it.
So, of all of the events, packages, courses you offer, which one are you most excited about for the upcoming year? Is that a mean
Oh
question?
man, it's so hard, I think the best way to answer that is like honestly every single route that Aspire offers, every single trip is is unique and has its own affect, its own vibe. So I think for me, part of I guess what I love about being a guide is being able to kind of move with the season, with the snow line through our courses and get to experience all of those different spots. But I would say like um, Aspire has three different trip styles. We have our stage trips, and those are kind of more objective based, big mountain, big mile days in remote terrain. So that would be the Wonderland Trail, Yosemite, and others. Um, and and then we also have our rendezvous trips, which are really, in essence, mountain running parties, where you kind of get to have the same base camp, go explore a zone, and then come back to like an kind of elevated camp vibe with live music or yoga, kind of depending on the location. Um, so I think it's really tough to pin just one down. And this year we're introducing more skills courses. So we have one that's like a overnight fast pack and summit of Glacier Peak, where there will be um, some instruction on the ground on how to travel fast and light through the Alpine, which I think is a space that a lot of trail runners exist in.
Mhm.
Um, I guess to circle back around, I don't know if I can answer that, man.
Well, I think you.
I'm really excited about all of them. I think it's just cool to go through the different mountain seasons. We do have a trip that's not announced yet that if it happens, I will be super stoked on. So I'll just kind of leave that hanging there as like a stay tuned. If you're not following Aspire on social media, that's a good idea.
Okay, that's the worst kind of cliffhanger. I like it. I like it a lot. Let's switch gears and talk about the film festival. I had known about the film festival very much in a distance on the periphery because it had sort of had a physical tour where you showed films in cool locations, meccas, and destination of trail runner running around the entire country. And then COVID hit, and you were like, okay, we can't meet physically, but we do need to get inspired. We do need to do something to bring the community together. What can we do? And the virtual film festival was born, and so over this last year, there were several virtual film festivals, and the one that you've briefly touched on is upcoming is another virtual one. So tell a little bit about how you ended up on this virtual one. What makes the virtual film festival so special? Because yeah, people like gathering, but we are yes, it's 2022, and yet again we are the place where we really shouldn't gather.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think you summed it up pretty well as far as the history there, the Film Fest. It started sort of just after Rain Shadow races, the Orcas Island races specifically in the late 2000s with some of the folks, in the Rain Shadow community just hunkering down in the lodge on Orcas and watching trail running movies, on a TV. And that grew into the like national tour, which James spearheaded. Um, and traveled all across the country. And that happened for a number of years. And, um, you know, when the pandemic hit and the lockdowns happened, I think didn't we all kind of freak out?
Oh, I mean, I've been in a stage of constant freak out for the past 2 years, right? I mean, I've got kids in school, and my wife works out in the public, and so this constant. I'm trying to organize events. I just announced new races for this upcoming year, and this constant, are we, where we, what should we do, how dangerous, how is it safe, is it responsible? Yeah, so we are freaking out and we have not stopped.
Exactly, man. And I think that that initial period of kind of March and April of 2020 was so, confusing, and so it was such a shock to our systems. And I got to say, James has built something pretty incredible with the film festival, and I know Abram and James have been talking around the time that the pandemic hit. And Abram, if you can't tell this about Abe, I have a feeling you probably do have a read on this, but Abe's a doer, So when the lockdown happens, we were all trying to figure out what to do. I think Abe kind of had that idea of like, look, I think we can do this virtually. And so we did. I think between the beginning of the pandemic and now, I believe we had 7 virtual shows. So at this point, there's some deep cuts, and some real classics back there.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's super great. So you're bringing it back as a virtual one. What makes the virtual one interesting, especially in a time where everything is sort of on demand and anybody can go to YouTube and find Solomon dropped the latest drone shot video, that you are actually doing this live, which, I mean, I'm a technology guy. I've been working in technology. It's a really interesting and cool way of, in a very lo-fi way, bringing people together as if you'd have, I don't even watch Saturday Night Live anymore. I watch these clips on demand that social media tells me are worth watching, right? But to bring people together all at the same time and saying, hey, let's watch some shows together, is a super cool way, partially from a technology point of view, because it's actually possible for you without a giant studio. And it's a great way because we actually can be together and have sort of this shared and common moment together.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that. I think the having something to come together around and having a moment where people do come together to experience that is important. And so I think that has been some of the magic of the virtual shows over the last year and a half. That's what races are for our community, and so as races have at first, had been canceled, and then now are really just piecing their way through, and many of them back, but plenty of challenges. I think to have that community gathering space in a bigger way on the internet is cool. Yeah. I think one of the things that I really have appreciated over the last year and a half has just been the chat room on the show.
Chaotic as it may be, it is appreciated.
Always chaotic, always interesting, but it's funny in there, and we see, over the course of our multiple virtual shows, we know who's going to be in there talking up a storm.
Yeah.
And it's fun to drop in and chat with them. Oh, hey, good to see. I got quotes going on over here, but good to see you again. Glad you're here watching with us, kind of thing.
Yeah. So the technology side, you figured out. I think part of what made especially the first episode so amazing from a talking point of view was that there were so many hiccups that it really felt live and raw. Luckily, you've solved these pieces. You found sort of the heart of it, which is bringing the community together. But you're pushing it further, and that is very much reflected in the lineup of films that you have on deck for this upcoming show, but you've had in the past shows. And I'm super fascinated by this because I think there's been a long conversation in the outdoor community over the last last couple of years, I suppose, where we've seen so many white men running shirtless with their sponsor on through the wild, and that being sort of that inspirational focus. And we needed and are desperate for more diversity. And you've really taken this on, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. We really need diversity and representation within our sport. It's well documented, the challenges that people of color and people from the BIPOC community, and people from the LGBTQ community have faced and do face in getting outside, and how privilege plays into access. And like, full transparency here, man, like the film festival for the last year and a half has been 4 white dudes working on lineups of shows. And I think that's not lost on us, and it is important to us to show up and do the work to increase representation within the films that we show, and also with the filmmakers that we are working with. So that's, to be just totally honest, it's new territory for all of us, and it's something that we have to be proactive about, and that we want to be proactive about. So I am pretty happy with the winter edition shows lineup, and what we'll be able to show. I think we have done some work that's led to a lineup that is more diverse and has some stories that are, I think, because of that diversity, they show more perspectives, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing, and it's something I'd like to see a lot more of in our sport in general.
Well, let's talk about your lineup. I think it's tough to talk about something that is in progress and requires so much work. And I'm a white dude too, right? So I understand the challenges, and you were speaking to the right thing, in a sense that you can't just scour YouTube and say, well, I'm just going to find the other voices, because if those voices were never encouraged or enabled, then they will not exist. So there is a lot of proactive work that needs to happen for these kind of products to even exist, these people to even feel empowered and enabled to create these products. And you're doing that kind of work, and I think it gets to show in your lineup. So why don't you talk me through kind of the films that we can be looking forward to seeing at the film festival, so we can kind of practically see how that's going to turn out.
Sure. Well, I will pivot real quick to just kind of address a little bit of what you just mentioned, which is, one of the pieces and challenges or the challenges in addressing diversity and representation on film festival lineups, trail running film festival lineups, is a lot of the films that we have traditionally shown are just films that are submitted to the film festival. And so if those films are not a reflection of diversity, then we are, that creates a challenge as far as making sure that we have a spread of stories that is balanced. And so honestly, I can't remember if it was the year-end show last year, maybe. We created the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Film Festival, Film Grant Fund. And I want to say that fundraising raised around $13,000 for seeding films and supporting the work of seeding films that tell more diverse and underrepresented stories. And so one of the things that's exciting about this lineup for the winter edition is we are now seeing some of those films on this lineup. And so maybe that's a good transition point to just drop into our 7 films, which are all pretty beautiful. I think each member of the film festival team is pretty excited about what we'll be showing here. So yeah, we've got Journey to 100, which is a story about Jason Hardrath. He's a small town elementary school teacher from the Northwest, I believe,
and regular on Single Track. So my audience knows Jason and his incredible 100K Washington Bulger feat very well. Yes, amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that is the focus of this film, is Jason's journey to 100, and specifically the Bulger list. It's a beautiful film. It is both inspiring from a human perspective, and the footage is just absolutely stunning, as you would expect from a film about scaling the 100 highest peaks in our fantastic state.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I can't wait for our community to watch that together. We also have the Race Against Race. So this is a film by Natalie Randall, who wrote the... This is a film by Natalie Randall. It's a story of how she transformed the running while black concept into an act of protest in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
This film is, it's not an easy watch. This is not purely a feel-good film, though I think there are some profoundly edifying moments, but I think it's one of the most important films that that we could be showing, and includes a 50-mile run, and as well as footage of people who've been directly impacted by police brutality speaking out against it. I think I can kind of leave that there and let the film do the rest of the talking, but it's pretty moving.
Good. It's important that we hear these kind of stories, right? And are not just transformed into Red Bull land.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Then we've got Muddiest to Known Time. This is the story of Millie Young, 100-mile FKT attempt through a remote portion of southwest Tasmania. This film is fun. It's great, and I think as far as FKT films, it happens in a remote location that we don't see a ton of film footage of, and the Millie, the subject is pretty charming. It's great. I'm excited to share that one. Then we've got a film, Trailbound Alaska. This is a film by Max Romy, kind of on a mission to rediscover some trails through his Alaskan backyard. And in this one, he's traveling some of the Southern Trek, part of the historic Iditarod route from Seward back to Anchorage, Alaska. So again, just exceptionally beautiful terrain. Max's storytelling is, I think, curious and tender-hearted. I'm really excited for people to see this one. Then we've got Every Root, Every Rock. That is a film by Aspire, and the Film Fest owns Nick Danielson. It is a story of Dan Berlin, who is the co-founder and president of Team C Possibilities. He is a blind runner. He's done rim to rim to rim. He's done the Inca Trail. He's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I think part of the mission of Team C Possibilities, his nonprofit, is to show vision impaired kids, what is possible. So this film takes place on the Wonderland Trail. Dan and his team set a goal to circumnavigate Rainier, and this film covers that story. Then we've got Pies para Volar, which is kind of a lyric film meditation on what movement in the wild can teach a young immigrant mother about her postpartum body. That film is really touching. That, along with Race Against Race, and the next film I'll talk about, are all recipients of the DEI Film Grant Fund. So the last one to talk about here is The Right Track. This is a film by Conti Media, and the documentary explores the purpose and impact of movers and pacers. This is a running organization in Atlanta that's kind of focused on being a community space for the BIPOC community. So there's quite a bit of exploring as far as what does running mean to us and what has movers and pacers meant to the community there. Another touching film. So that's our lineup, and I'm pretty excited about it. You can head over to trailfilmfest.com to read more and watch a few trailers, as well as the full Trail Running Film Festival Winter Edition trailer. And tickets are also live now on the website.
Super. You said an awesome word. You said a possibility, to see what's possible, and I think that's so fantastic about this time of the year. In some respect, going from one year to a new year is an arbitrary time in our calendar, but it does allow us to kind of sit back, assess, relax, hopefully, and get inspired again for how we want to live our life. And inspiration is about laying out what's possible, what we can do with our lives, and to be able to have a lineup that not just inspires a diverse group of people and represents a diverse group of people, but shows a variety of possibility and not just sort of endless gnarliness and always bigger, better, faster, more. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I remember about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago when I sort of rediscovered Red Bull films, and I still enjoy them, but there is sort of an endless chasing for this bigger, better, faster, more. And while there is a space in our sport to try to get the fastest time around the Wonderland and try to get the 100 peaks in Washington State in the fastest possible time. I love FKT, so I love that aspect of our sport, and there always needs to be room for somebody winning a race. Otherwise, we wouldn't need races anymore. But I think inspiration needs to be for everyone, and if we can inspire through stories that go beyond being the fastest, then I think we're including more people, and that will only benefit us as individuals in our sport.
I'm right there with you. I mean, my hope would be, well, maybe I'll tell this story, right? So, this is a little bit of a funny segue, but my first experience with the film festival was in 2018. I actually went to the festival to table for Aspire. This was right as I was getting involved with Aspire, and sat down to watch the films. And this is kind of another thing about me, but I now am a DJ and event producer. I throw parties in Seattle and in Bellingham, and sitting and watching the films. It's a little bit funny to ask a room full of trail runners to sit still for 2.5 hours, and so at some point my mind, is just starting to think and actually getting inspired watching these films. And this is a personal thing, but I think a lot of films, especially historically, have been soundtracked by like kind of indie folk music, and I work more in the kind of electronic realm, and it just hit me like, man, I need to be active musically. I was kind of coming out of a time of not being particularly active, and I've been a musician for most of my life, but it hit me in that moment, like, oh, I need to go and I need to do, and these films created that inspiration, and some of that is just through the stories that they tell. And so I think, yeah, that is a lot of the value, right? Like when people watch these films, and these films focus on not only like, man, that's an epic objective, and that person is capable of doing this really fast, and like, wow, look what humans are capable of, but also like, oh, that perspective, like running meant this to Natalie, and she used running as the social catalyst to create change, or running was a way for Sheila Aguilar, who's the filmmaker from Pies para Volar, to kind of explore the connection with our body. I think when we kind of open up to a broader range of narratives, it means more people can access that inspiration.
Correct. Absolutely. No, I think that's fantastic. I'm super excited about it. I think I've talked to a lot of my trail running friends, and everybody is planning their new year and trying to figure out what their goals should be. Some, have a fixed annual mileage goals. Other sign up for races and sort of schedule their the year around that. Others come up with FKTs that they wanna chase. But if you if you sort of are still in that inspirational phase and you're looking for ideas, signing up or getting a ticket for the film festival and watching those movies will definitely help. It sounds incredible. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think you're so right. So what are your goals? Do you have any goals worked out yet?
Well, I think this last year or this year that is about to end, I sort of by accident signed up for a couple races, which sort of then took my entire focus for the year from a training point of view and traveling and stuff. And I'm not really interested in signing up for a race right this moment. I'm pretty sure there will be some races just to motivate for some objective, but I'm looking forward to trying to find. And I'm not a runner that can compete on an FKT circuit, try to be the fastest, but I'm fascinated with the OKT, with the only known times, coming up with a route that no one has ever run before or no one has ever documented. And so I'm looking forward to try to come up with a couple ones that, I don't know, might be new. Perhaps somebody has done them before, but I'm excited to sort of pore over some routes and see what I can connect. I've talked about on the show before. There's Mount Townsend on the Olympic Peninsula is one of the few mountains that you could ostensibly do a infinity loop on. And so I want to find a good way of doing that. Looked at some maps, and I'm trying to minimize bushwhacking and to make it actually accessible for others. But I'm fascinated by the idea of trying to actually get that done this year.
Very cool. I love it.
For you, what's in? I mean, you probably are pretty busy being out there guiding, right? Is there room for your own objectives in between?
Well, that's a astute observation. I think there's not a ton of time out, like race. Yeah, there's not a ton of time just kind of following my whimsy. And races really, maybe one will make it on the calendar. But I'm kind of in the same space as you, in that I if I can center some exploration around like a project, that is really satisfying, really fulfilling for me. So I actually have an OKT that I've been doing some work on. I ran about 50 miles of it, 57 miles with my co-guide Kara Folkerts last October. It's over in the peninsula, but it's part of a bigger project that, I would like to at least scout another piece of. It's really stellar route, and I'll send it to you.
Nice.
I've named it in Gaia Maps. I've named it Olympic Gold.
Nice. All right.
Like a tour a day peninsula, right? Like it's every bit of compelling high country that I can fit in conceivably as a trail run with a little bit of support.
Nice, fantastic. Yeah, my big route that is sort of my crowning running achievement is a route that I called Cushman 6, which is the 6 peaks right above Hoodsport, Lake Cushman area. So you go from Big Creek, you do Mount Washington, you traverse over to Eleanor, and then I found a connector trail that takes you from Eleanor to Mount Rose. And then from Mount Rose, you go to Copper, and Copper has 2 summits. So you do the 2 summits of Copper, and then you go down towards Wagon Wheel Lake, and you do Cup Peak up there, and you go to the staircase area. I've put that route together in 2019 in the fall, and it very much speaks to me because it's not an insane amount of miles. It was only 24 miles, I think. It's not an insane amount of work. You're not crazy in the backcountry because, Washington, Illinois, Rose, right? I mean, they're all accessible peaks. So if there's an issue, you can easily sort of abort the mission and you're right back at a trailhead or something. But at the same time, these peaks, especially for you from Olympia, right? You see them almost every day when the weather is good, right? So it feels really accessible, but I don't think anybody has ever put all the peaks together in that way. And I'm pretty sure there are other variations and you could expand on this idea, but that was a huge project that I did with a couple friends. And it was super, super fulfilling. And so, I poured over maps, did the mountains individually all a couple times too. And once I figured out that connector trail between Illinois and Rhodes, I knew that there's a way. They would minimize the bushwhacking. That's always that challenge when you're not majorly in the high country, but in the Olympics, bushwhacking can slow you down so fast that you very quickly lose all enjoyment in your movement.
Nice. That sounds like a great route.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to some data about it. Well, amazing. Trent, this was fantastic. The Trail Film Festival is happening. What's the date? January 5th?
January 15th, and it'll be available to watch on the film festival website for the next week through, I think the date is Sunday the 23rd.
Okay. We'll have, again, to our listeners, we have links to everything. Buy tickets, get info on the films in the show notes. Go and get inspired for the new year. This is exciting. All right. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, visit trailfilmfest.com to get your ticket to the awesome virtual winter edition of the Trail Running Film Festival. Do it.